Hello, good morning. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Sunday 10 a.m. technique at the Alaskan Adventure Online Crop. We are on our last day of touring around Alaska and seeing all there is to see, or a lot of what there is to see, some of what there is to see. I don't think you can fully explore an area in only a few days, but we have been looking at a lot of stuff. If you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. If you're watching later on replay, you can drop a comment and I'd love to hear from you. I see we have Kimberly watching. You're home, you're home. Kimberly's been on her own adventure the last little while and can't wait to see all the photos. Hey, Deborah, good morning, good morning. Welcome. So we are going to be talking about something that can be traumatic. So just a warning, this can be traumatic. What do we do when all the paper is gone? I know. It's not fun to think about. But when you find a collection, like I found a collection in a catalog, this is the Stampin' Up! Current annual catalog. If you find a collection that you just love and that will work for so many of your photos, I have two air cadets in my family, and so this Take to the Sky paper collection and suite is just perfect for them. But there's only so much paper you can buy. And when all the paper is gone, what are you going to do? So that's what we're going to be discussing today. I know it's not as dramatic as all that, but we've got some tips and some techniques for you today, and that I hope will give you some inspiration for your crafting. Good morning, Heather. Good morning. I know. Oh no, all the paper is gone. It's a trauma. Um, so we're going to be looking at this Take to the Sky, and specifically the Adventurous Sky stamp and thin cuts. That is what is going to be the saving of the day when all the paper is gone, because there are a couple different kinds of things that we craft with. We craft with consumables and non-consumables. I know those are big words, but paper, adhesive, ink, embellishments, those are all consumables. So we buy them, we use them, and then they're gone. At least that's the hope, because if you buy them, you need to use them. However, there are things that we use in crafting that are non-consumables. Those are things like stamps, dies, tools, paper trimmers. The blades are consumable, but the trimmer is not. All those things are things that we will have and be able to use again and again and again and again and again until we either get bored of them and gift them to somebody else, or that eventually may break. So we're going to look at using some of those non-consumables to save the day when the paper is gone. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is the Adventurous Sky dies. Now, you guys know me. You guys know that I don't buy a lot of dies. I'm always honest about that. My preferable thing to do is to use my trusty scissors and fussy cut stuff. But there are cases when I buy the dies. There are certain ones that I know when I see them, I'm going to use them again and again and again. Good morning, Michelle. And so the Adventurous Sky, because of having two kids in Air Cadets, I know that I have a bajillion photos that I need to scrap, and that these will work for a lot of those because it's very thematic. And so I bought the dies. Plus, there are some things in the dies that aren't in the stamps, and specifically the airplane. This airplane here, which we're going to use today, is just the die. There are dies that cut out the stamped airplanes, but then there's also one that you can just use paper to create. And so I needed that. There's also the clouds, which, clouds, 3 different clouds, which we're also going to be using today. And those, while they are stamped image, we can use them in other ways besides just cutting out the stamped image. So let's get started. We're going to first need our 3 clouds. We got a big, a little, and a medium, just like Goldilocks. So we're going to set these aside for a second. And we're going to bring in a piece of cardstock. And our piece of cardstock, and I'm using specifically cardstock because I have a couple techniques that we're going to do. And for that, I need cardstock. We're going to create a stencil with our cardstock. Now, if you have acetate, you can also create a stencil with acetate, which is actually longer lasting because plastic. We know this about plastic. It's longer lasting. But I want to use some of the bits and pieces. So for this demonstration, I'm going to show you it with cardstock. Okay. So we've got our piece of cardstock, and I know I'm going to be making a standard size card base, and I'm going to have a layer on it. And so I drew a 4 by 5 1/4 rectangle on my 6 by 6 piece of white cardstock. Okay, so that gives me an idea of where I'm going, the footprint of where I'm going to be stenciling. Now, you can also create a stencil that will work anywhere. You can create a stencil that will work on a layout in a mini album for anything. You can make wrapping paper with it. The sky's the limit, literally. So for this one, we're going to be putting our stencils on, or our dies on here. I've got my die cut machine here, and I'm bringing it up here because I have used washi tape that that I've used many times. And so we're going to go ahead and put some of our dies on here. Now, the trick with dies is that you don't need to have them all on the area that you're going to stencil. You can have them going off, just like stamping outside the lines is good. You can do the same thing with your dies. So I'm just going to take my dies and create a little background here. And quite often when I use dies, I don't stick them down, but for this time I will, because I'm going to put a whole bunch on here, and they will slide willy-nilly around on my page, my piece of cardstock. And I'm trying to make sure that I keep the bottoms of my clouds level-ish. Now I'm going to bring in my die cut machine. I know you guys know how to die cut stuff. I'm going to stick it in there. Now 6 inches is as wide as my die cut machine will take, so that's why I chose 6 inches for my stencil. Plus I'm using it for a card, and so I didn't need to make it any bigger. All right, now we're going to rearrange our dies gently. I'm going to pop out these pieces, and I'm not throwing them away because remember I said we're going to be using the pieces. That's why we're using the cardstock this time. There we go. One more. Okay, now let's stick our dies back on. There we go. Let's see, this little guy. Let's stick him over here. We can even overlap our dies. We sure can. This is the great thing about having all different sizes. You can do more than one die at a time. Let's overlap this one too, just for fun. Like so. Make sure you don't put the washi tape in the hole, because otherwise it's not holding. And then we're going to run that through. I'm doing it just off to the side here, so I don't have to keep moving my machine. And I think we'll run it through one more time, just for good measure, because we want a really nice a really nice stencil going on here. There's that. There's that. Already it looks pretty cool, don't you think? Did I say good morning to you, Michelle? Good morning, just in case. I think I did. All right, I got too many pieces of sticky washi tape stuck to me. Does anybody else reuse their washi tape? I definitely do. Because it gets lower tack as you go. So if you're ever worried about it pulling off and damaging your paper, just use it multiple times. And if you haven't used it multiple times and you're worried, then you can stick it to your pants and take it off a couple times. And we're going to actually do that as part of our technique here in a minute. Not with washi tape, but with something else. You'll see, you'll see. So there, I've created my stencil. I think I've got enough clouds going on there. I'm going to pop my stencils over to the side. But actually, while we're here, let me grab a scrap piece of paper. I don't need a washi tape for this. And I'm actually going to cut out these two smaller clouds. Just because I need a little extra. You always got to have a little extra. So I'm going to cut those out. Two extra clouds. And we're going to set these aside if I could get a grip on them. Get a grip, man. There we go. 1, 2. And we'll put our dies in a little pile there. Usually I throw them back onto the sheet, but we're going to take our chances that we won't lose them while we're working here. Okay, so we've created a stencil, but we've also created something else. Can somebody tell me what we've created with these? If it's not a stencil, it's got another name. I'm going to set those a little bit farther aside so I don't try to use them. Hey, Diane. Good morning. Good morning. You need coffee. Yes, yes. So here is the piece of paper that we're going to be using on our card front. I'm also going to bring in a scrap piece of paper because we're going to get inky and, you know, it's always good to stay a little uninky by times. Now I'm going to go ahead and stick a little piece of washi tape on the back side, top and bottom, of my 4 by 5 1/4 piece of cardstock. And then I'm going to line-ish my, you know, if I started with straight cardstock, that would help. Let's use the lines on the scrap paper to help us. That looks good. And we can stick it down because our stencil is bigger than our piece of paper. There we go. Okay, so we've got our piece of paper in behind our stencil. Has anybody figured this out? Yes, Deborah, it's a mask. So we've got a stencil and we've got a mask going on here. I'm going to scooch those right up there. Actually, I'm going to use them first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these pieces and I'm going to stick them back in to the spots where they came out of. In order to do that, I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to them so that they don't shift around. And I'm going to add just a little tiny nubbin. Now, if you have repositional adhesive, that is fabulous. I do not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. And that's going to get a little bit of lint, because everybody's clothes have a little bit of lint, onto the stickiness. So now it's not quite as tacky, because I don't want it to damage my cardstock underneath. That's the hope. You also just be careful when you're peeling it off. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to stick all my pieces. It's like doing a puzzle. You know those old puzzles for toddlers that are, you know, they're wooden and then they've got the base that has the shapes? Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're sticking our masks back in, making sure to take the extra stick off. There we go. We've also got this one. There we go. unsticky. Lots of unsticking. And put that one in. So this takes a minute to get this accomplished, but I wanted to show you the full process, or as much of the full process. Okay, let's unsticky this one. The big thing is, if you have too sticky of adhesive, then it'll tear your paper or it will leave too much residue. And then when you go on with the process, it'll interfere with what it looks like in the end. Now, I did a bit of a boo-boo on mine last night, and I was able to hide it. And so, there's always ways around it. You kind of learn that as a crafter, right? You learn how to hide the boo-boos. All right. The last two. Oh, that one got a little bit of sticky. Didn't even leave any backing. All right. There we go. So if you have a little tape runner with repositionable tape, Diane says they look like mountains in the distance. They kind of do. Yep. All right. Where was this one going? This one's going here. And the last one. Better get a new spot with more lint. If you're wearing your jammies, this always works well. I'm not wearing jammies at the moment, but if you're wearing jammies, this works well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to carefully remove the stencil. We're removing the stencil. Okay. So now we're going to come in with our blending brush and some blue ink. And this is where I had a little bit of trouble. I was trying to figure out the process in my brain, which parts get what things and where and how, and I finally figured it out, and that made me happy because the first couple times I was attempting this, I was like, ugh, I don't know. Pardon me. So we've got some boho blue, we've got a blending brush. We're going to try to remove a little bit of the ink from the blending brush. Now, I know these are stuck down, but I don't want them to move because that's going to be important later on. And I'm just going to go ahead and ink around my masks and create some lovely blue sky. And I find it's even easier to turn your stencil sometimes so you can get in all the nooks and crannies. And you can go as dark or as light as you want. These blending brushes are fabulous for that. And you just work your way around. This is where having, a glass mat or some other non-porous surface is good so that you can use it to ink on. But if you don't have that, then do like me and just have some scratch paper. You can just work your way around on. I'm trying so hard not to leave big blobs of ink that I'm not getting enough ink on my brush. So it takes a little longer when you're trying to be careful. And we're just going around all of our masks. Don't worry if you get ink on the mask. That's what it's for. It's to hold the ink. I'm going to add a little bit extra color in a few spots because the sky is never all the same color, is it? There, I think that looks good. So now we can close that up. We're done with our boho blue, and now we get to do the reveal. But even though we did our adhesive gently and carefully, and we linted it and all those things, we're still going to take our time removing the masks, because the last thing you want is to tear your cardstock underneath. If you end up with a little bit of residue, then you can use a remove eraser to get the adhesive off. So far, so good. And you will see that we are left with nice, lovely white clouds. There we go. Lovely white clouds. Something there. There we go. And hopefully my fingers aren't too inky and I'm not going to right through my lovely white clouds. But I don't want to leave them just as white clouds. I want a little bit of, and I just took my sticky off. I don't know why I did that. I want to have a little bit of color on my clouds. I know, it seems silly. We just made white clouds and now we want color. But I want this to kind of look like a sunrise or a sunset. So we're going to now take our stencil. This is where the stencil part comes in. And we're going to apply our stencil right on top. And we should be able to line it up with where the clouds are, because we use the stencil to put those masks down. That's why that step was important. So we've got now our stencil stuck back on, and we're going to bring in a different color. We're bringing in some Moody Mauve, and we're going to do a little bit more ink blending on this. If you ever have trouble with your ink pad shuffling around while you're trying to, pick up ink, use one of these drawer liner dealies underneath it, and that will really help. Okay, now I'm going to try and remove, I'm getting ink on and then taking a lot of ink off, because what we're going to do is we're just going to come in and add some ink just to the bottom of our clouds, just the bottom, and I want it to be pretty and light. All the way across the bottom. Then we'll come in, we'll do this one. This one you have to be a little bit careful because it's right next to that one below. So we're just slightly doing elongated ovals here to transfer the ink. And I always find it hard to talk when you're inking. I had a teacher in school that had walking and chewing gum, he said. And I kind of understand that a bit more now when you try to craft and talk at the same time. So we're adding our little bit of ink to the bottom of our clouds. All right, I'm not going to put that away all the way because we're going to use it. Well, I'll close it for now, just because I'm bound to stick something in it. And now time for the reveal. Woo! Look at that. We've got our lovely little bit of rosiness on the bottoms of our clouds, creating a really fun sunrise or sunset look. Kimberly's liking what's happening. Hooray! So there we've got that, and then we want to start building our card. So let me move this out of the way, our scrappy bit. I'm going to add a little bit of embellishing to this before I go any further. And I've got here the Baker's Twine 3-color pack. And I'm going to use the blue one from this. I don't know if it's specifically boho blue, but it looks good with the lightness of the color of blue that I have. And I'm going to just add a little bit here. Just 2 wraps, and I'm kind of crisscrossing them in an X pattern. Snip that off. And I noticed when I took these ones off the roll, the last time I used a roll of this stuff, it was very crinkly, or kinkly. I'm just going to tie a simple knot. I'm not making a bow or anything. Just a simple knot, and this is kind of like wrapping a birthday present. You got to keep that finger on the first bit of the knot that you tie. Make sure it stays, and then you can kind of adjust how you want it. So I'm just going to kind of spread those out, and we can trim this off. I don't really want any of the dangly bits. There we go. Okay, now we can add in a piece of cardstock in behind this. And this is the Moody Mauve, and it's been cut to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So we can add some, you know what, because that's got the string on there, it's probably easier if I add the adhesive to the mauve. So I'm just going to add some adhesive, staying in from the edges, like so. So are the wheels churning in your brain? You're like, what could I stencil? What dies do I have that I could make into stencils and masks and create my own paper? Now, I did a small area. This is just a card. But this can translate into a big area because my die cut machine can only go 6 inches wide, but I can make it as long as I want. I can just keep moving the paper. So I could do a 6 by 12 piece and use it to stencil across the whole 12 by 12 layout, right? There's options there. Okay, then I'm going to bring in my card base, and it's just a standard white card base. I'm going to crease that down. So this ends up being 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Keep forgetting where I've set down my adhesive. And yes, I do remember that I still have some clouds over here. Don't worry, we'll get to that. We will get there. Remember those 2 extras that we did? Because we always got to be a little extra. All right, let's center this on here. And I like how this creates a tiny bit of white, a tiny bit of the mauve, and then we've got our layer that we've created our own paper because we ran out of paper. Technically, I haven't run out of that paper yet, but this is just preparing me for when I do, because it's inevitable. The paper will run out. Okay, so our next step is to sneeze, apparently, is to bring in, pardon me, the dies that cut out our airplane, because we're going to put an airplane on this. It was just calling for an airplane. So we've got the large body and then the wings and the propeller and everything. And one more, the little propeller. This also has the dies that make a little banner that trails behind. So some of the sentiments in the stamp set are done in such a way that they could fit inside the little banner, which is super cute. So you know how people have the airplanes and they fly through with a message or advertising or something? Yep, can totally do, you know, marry me or whatever. Okay, bringing back in the die cut machine. And for this one, we're going to have to get a little bit foily. So this is the silver foil specialty paper. And for the wings and the propeller and everything, we're going to use this silver foil. So I'm not even, you know, tying this down or anything. I'm just going to go ahead and trim this out. Like so. Add it to the pile of dies that's growing over here. Grab that. And then I also want to cut out my propeller. And if you notice this, we've got pieces that actually come out of the die cut. This piece is the perfect size to cut out a propeller. We only need one. And so instead of using another chunk of the silver foil, I can just use the pop-out piece. So that's a handy tip. You can't get 2 propellers out of it, but you can get one. So there's my little propeller to add, and you only need one for this little airplane. So there we go. And then we have the body, and for that we're going to be using some base smoky slate, I believe. I was going to say basic gray. I think this is smoky slate. I will double check, and when I put it in with the photos, I'll make sure that it's the right name. But I'm pretty sure that's smoky slate. We're going to cut out the fuselage of our plane. Look at me using airplane words. Lynn will probably correct me if I'm wrong, because Lynn knows more. Her husband builds airplanes. So there we go. There's the body of our airplane. And now we can scooch our machine out of the way. And we get to pop out all the bits. There are no bits to pop out of this one, but there are some bits to pop out of this, and you can make some lovely silver foil confettis out of this if you want. We've got the things around the propeller, the things around the wings. They pop out nicely, but because they're so small, they're just kind of still hanging in there. So you gotta kind of say, hey, how'd you go? There we go. Pop, 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 pop. Pop. Does anybody else find great satisfaction in popping out little bits? I don't know. It's one of those things. All right, there we go. That's all our bits. Our lovely little confettis. Shiny. There we go. Gathered them all up. Now we can put our plane together. But because we're being a little extra, the planes are metal, so they're kind of shiny, or they're fiberglass, or whatever it is they make them out of, and composite materials probably. We're going to take some of our Moody Mauve, and we probably actually have still enough mauve on our brush from before, and we're going to add some mauve just to the bottom of our airplane, because it's flying in the air and it's being affected by the sunrise or the sunset just as much as the clouds. So we've added a little bit of Moody Mauve onto there. We're creating a scene in the sky. So we have to do the whole thing, right? Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to attach these two pieces together. So we need to add some glue. Add some around here. Now, if I was really being careful, I would do the method where I go tap, tap, tap on my hand with the glue, but I'm just going to do it this way for today. You do have to be careful with foil and liquid adhesive, because if you get liquid adhesive on the front of foil, it's one of those things where it's going to leave a mark. You know, when somebody hurts themselves and they say, that'll leave a mark. Yeah, that happens with the foil as well. I've also got my little propeller, but because the little propeller is a little bit fiddly, I'm going to actually stick my airplane down first and then put my propeller on. So I've got some of these foam strips. What are they called? Probably foam strips. Foam adhesive strips. And so they're nice and skinny and long. And I've actually snipped this so I can just peel off a couple little chunks. There we go. Stick one there. Stick one there. Because they're so skinny and long, you can actually bend them a bit when you're sticking them down to things. There we go. And we're going to stick our airplane rising up through the clouds like that. Stick it down. And then, of course, we can add a little bit of adhesive just right here on the nose where the propeller is going to go. And I'm even going to use tweezers. Just because this is a little finagly. And there's actually, oh, I got it the wrong way around. There's actually a shape to the nose, and so if you line up the shape in the center of your propeller with the shape on your nose, you'll know you've got it in the right spot. There we go. Okay, You remember, we had 2 extra little cloudy bits. And these are the things that I use for to hide my boo-boos. So if you had any boo-boos in your clouds or in your sky or something really, ooh, you know, you got a harsh line when you were ink blending, that's what these extra little scatter clouds are really good for. And so what we're going to do, probably still have enough ink on our brush, we're going to give them a little bit of some Moody Mauve on the bottom so that they blend in with the other clouds. Scooch them off and grab some mini dimensionals and stick a couple dimensionals on here and a couple on here. I'm going to actually use a snippet of the edge. We've got the little edging around dimensionals, and you can always just snip and use a little chunk from the edge if you only just need a little bit. Just a little bit. Take our backing off, and this will also add a little extra to our layout, to our card, because now we're adding a little bit of dimension and we're just kind of building on all those lovely clouds. Yes, the stamping or the stenciling and the masking creates a beautiful background, but it just adds a little something when there's some dimension. And then we'll add this little guy kind of down here like this, popped on top. Alrighty, now we need a sentiment. So I am using the sentiment from the stamp that set that says flying by to say hi, because that's a nice generic. It can end up, you can stamp whatever you want on the inside, so if you want a happy birthday or whatever. But because our sentiment is going on our card, we might as well keep it thematic. We're going to give a little bit of the pink to the bottom of it too. So we've stamped out flying by to say hi. I just used Memento ink for that. And then we're going to add some foam to the back. We're going to pop this up. Now I'm going to put it right over where our knot is on here. So on this side, I can put a foam in the center. But on this side, we're going to have to straddle the knot and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give myself a couple snippets from the edge that I can put on the outside edges at this end of the sentiment so that there's a little gap in the middle for the string to run through. And there we go. I'm using my tweezers to help me so that my fingers aren't everywhere I want to be. Is there a credit card or something that's their theme, everywhere you want to be? I find my fingers get in all the places I want to be or I want to see. Alrighty, so there we go. That is our completed card. We created our own stencil and our own mask using just those simple cloud dies from the Adventurous Sky die and stamp set. And we cut out our plain as well. We did lots of inking with Boho Blue and Moody Mauve to create that beautiful sky look. And then, of course, we added a couple extra clouds on top for dimension. It looks like our airplane is now traveling through the sky. Love that silver foil on there as well. So I hope you feel assured that when you have those non-consumable bits in your crafting stash, your stencils, your stamps, your dies, even if you don't have a stencil, you can create one with the dies. I hope you feel assured that even when the paper is all gone, you can still create with the beautiful stamps and dies that you purchased. And I think that's just a really pretty card. I hope you guys are inspired. And if you create a card like this or use this technique, take a photo of it, pop it in the comments where I post the photos of this project, and we would love to see and be inspired by your artwork. Have a wonderful rest of the morning, and we'll be on at 11:30 for Chat and Craft. We'll see you then. Toodaloo. Bye.